Hey guys, welcome back to Prem Talk. Yet another video, and it's been a while since we did this episode of the review. I believe I wasn't able to make episode 5 because of a few one twos here and there that I had to go and handle. But I'm glad that we are back. Sadly, we missed episode 5. It would have been a lot fun, but we are here now with episode 6. And for sure, it's going to be another informative, another great, another joyous episode of the review. And of course, where we, if you do not know, we go through all the events that have happened throughout the entire game week, all the way from first game all the way up to the last game. So in this case, game started on Saturday, early kickoff, 2:30 p.m. East African time, and the last game I believe ended yesterday with Everton and West Ham. So what we are going to do in this episode of the review is first of all start off with as you all know, I'm a Chelsea fan, so I'll just want to get this out of the way quickly so that, if there's a run to come along, let it come along now, and then we can move along to the with the video so uh, smoothly, I must say. So I will start with the Chelsea game. So Chelsea were at home finally after a few games now. We had been away. I believe that was Brentford, Manchester United, then in between that, of course, the Champions League with Bayern and the Carabao Cup with Lincoln City. So we were finally back home at Stamford Bridge, and we were hosting Brighton, aka what people would like to call our B team, because we seem to buy most of our best players from there. So we faced Brighton, and it was a bad day in the office. Very, very bad day in the office. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. And just for the good vibes to start, and then we'll get into all the negativity. Chelsea started off well. We did really well, started off very, very well on the front foot, looking to keep Brighton and their threats of Yankuba Minte, Kaoru Mitoma, and Jorginho Rute at bay. And I must say that we really did that well in the first few minutes. Roundabout up to the 30th minute, that was I must say, the end of our energetic performance. But at least the positive was in this fact that did manage to bat a goal, and it was a captain into the vice captain type of goal. Rhys James finding himself on the right wing and delivered a pitch of a cross. Granted, it did take a bit of a deflection there, but it did manage to find or locate the head of one Enzo Fernandez, who is making a habit of these well-timed runs into the box. What people nowadays would like to call the Lampardesque type of goals, runs starting from deep in midfield and ending farthest forward. And this time, Enzo Fernandez did open the scoring. This should be his second goal of the season already. He's adding along onto the goals column in his career as a Chelsea football player. We also must remember last season that he also did this well. I believe ended the season with 7 goals and 13 assists, so he is contributing attacking wise, and it is really wonderful to see that even though performance wise Enzo Fernandez this season hasn't started off that well, he has really played a lot of minutes, in all honesty, and it's not for the fault of anyone really. It's the unfortunate injury cases of Romeo Lavia and sadly the newly bought player in Dario Esugo did suffer the fate of injury or with a thigh injury in the last international break. He will be out for a while, And right now, I believe Enzo, Moises Caicedo, and maybe Andre Santos are there in regards to cover, but could be one of the reasons, the major reasons as to why Enzo Fernandez has really struggled in regards to performance at the start, at least of this season. But I do trust, just like last season, the way he started off very, very slow, and essentially he did gather momentum round about mid season and carried on all the way up to the end. So Enzo Fernandez did get the early goal here for Chelsea, at least to give us something that the high intensity and high pressure that we were applying on Brighton very early on and the chances created, that at least we did get something from our wonderful early start. And then after 30 minutes, as I have said, it was a slow death in regards to Chelsea Football Club and their momentum of trying to win this game. It was a really, really slow death as people, at the back, the ball started moving slow, playing out from the back. It was a lot of passes that were what I like to call negative passes, those passes that always go backwards instead of looking for room to play the ball forward to our attackers. So slowly by slowly, the likes of Pedro Neto, Estevao William, and João Pedro were getting isolated up front because the ball wasn't reaching to them. I believe the only two attackers that at least did something of the three were João Pedro, who worked hard, worked his socks off, and skillful Estevao William, who at every opportunity did manage to, take on his man. Although what let him down most of the time was I did count in two occasions when he should have squared the ball to Pedro Neto, who was on the other side, free as a bird. He did choose to take a shot later on, and it was blocked. So it's one thing that I'm sure Estevao William will continue to improve on, and those are just minute things which really we should not be worried about. So those two really did well. What annoyed me most with Pedro Neto is the fact really not to do much with him, but we all know that he's not comfortable on that left side because he's majorly left-footed. So he does most of his great work on the right wing. And as for my concerns, I did believe that one of uh, Garnacho or Gittens will have at least started to give us more impetus and more threat on that left wing. But the manager went with Pedro Neto, and he didn't really perform that well. It was a come see come sa performance from him. Yeah, so not really a tremendous or wonderful performance from Pedro Neto there, but not for his own doing, of course. So as I was saying that the game continued to die slow on a Chelsea perspective. More negative passes started to come, and Brighton did start to gather a bit of momentum. Although we did thwart most of their early attempts, it was either uh, good defending that forced them into making rash shots that really didn't trouble much of Robert Sanchez in goal. So that was the first half. As I mentioned, we were dying a slow death after the 30th minute. And into the second half, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. The lull in our game that we were starting off from the 30th minute onwards with a bit of negative passes, more negative passes than looking to penetrate the opposition, continued in the same theme. And simply because of that, with Brighton, of course, they were always going to be better in the second half. Did improve on their pressing game, did now decide to hunt us aggressively to get the ball back and look to create their own chances. And their pressure really did pay off. Yet another mistake from Chelsea. This time, the ball found itself to the feet of one Andre Santos, who his control let him down, and at a very untimely moment, he did slip, and as he slipped and attempted to play the ball back to Robert Sanchez, the pass was short, and there was Diego Gomez to run in on goal, and as if it wasn't bad enough that from the same scenario of last week where Robert Sanchez got sent off, and I remember Enzo Maresca was saying in the post match of that game that he would rather have Robert Sanchez have just let Brian Belmo go ahead and score, and rather than getting himself sent off with a silly challenge. And Chaloba did the same exact same thing here, instead of just allowing him to go and score because the game was still early on and at least leave us with 11v11. Chaloba decided to commit a very risky challenge, because it was either he gets the ball, or if he doesn't, he was always going to foul the player. So Trevor Chaloba fouls the player in Diego Gomez here, and because he's the last man, gets himself sent off, and we are down to 10 men yet again. And from the resulting free kick, they did score, of course, from it. At least this time, Enzo Maresca did not panic like he did in the United game and in taking off all of our attackers immediately. But it didn't really change much because Brighton continued their high pressure, and you could sense that they were on the verge of getting an equalizer. And the ball finds itself to Yankuba Minte on that left side, and he delivers a pitch over cross, and there is one Danny Welbeck, who at this point we really do not like him at this point because he always scores against us at Stamford Bridge, to make it 1-1, and all hell descended from there, in all honesty. Slowly by slowly, after that goal, Enzo Maresca took off. It first started off with Andre Santos, who went off. I didn't quite understand the substitution at that point, but it later became clear that he did suffer a knock. So Andre Santos went off, and I believe on came Malo Gusto, if I'm not wrong. And another change came on with Estevao going off, and more defensive substitutions happened. It was Estevao and Neto going off, and I believe it was, although I must say this was pre-planned because of giving minutes to the returning Romeo Lavia and Benoit Badiashile. So Pedro Neto also goes off. Estevao is also going off. And in all that, Andre Santos, of course, did go off early. And in all that, there was uh, Romeo Lavia, Benoit Badiashile, and Malo Gusto coming on. And really, if we were not really defensive that much, we were now more defensive. And it was clear that Brighton were getting momentum, but still, our defensive structure wasn't enough to, stave the threats of Brighton, who went ahead 2-1. Yet another cross into the box, and it was headed back across to the near post, where it met the head of one Maxim de Kuiper, who did get the second goal to put them ahead. And then at the very death, a mistake from our own Josh Achimpong, who did come on, that just killed everything, in all honesty. Josh, I believe, did come on for Jorel Heito, who did play well. I really didn't understand that substitution from Enzo Maresca. So Josh made an error in attempting to dribble out from the back, and of course he lost the ball. Why I'm saying, of course, is because he himself, Josh Achimpong, that is, has made that same mistake. I have counted 5 times since the start of last season when he did join the squad. I just believe that he does a lot in terms of taking on too many people at the same time. So The game ended 3-1, and sadly, it's yet another dropped point for my Chelsea Football Club. And I just believe that, the red card and Enzo Maresca honestly should have done better, is what ended up costing us the game. Anyway, so Chelsea lost. Uh, my bit of the rant is now over. Now we can continue to the other games, in all honesty. And I will now move into the United game. That was the early kickoff on Saturday. They faced GTEC Community Stadium, where Brentford play football, and United lost 3-1. They were, to say they were second best all game will be a bit unfair, but they did put up a bit of a fight. But Brentford, as much as I may have looked down on them from the beginning, like I didn't really see much of their early threats in the season. In fact, if you do remember, I believe after game week 1, I did predict them that they were one of the teams to go down, but they seem to have found an armory that was always in them back in their championship days when Thomas Frank was their coach, and they seem to have relocated in their armory the threat of long throws and set pieces. And honestly, if you look at the type of players that they do have, that type of football really suits them, because they have, it is a land of giants in that team. The likes of Christopher Age in midfield there, the likes of Frank the Tank Onyeka, uh, Jordan Henderson keeping the heads in there, just among others. And at the back there, when you have Ethan Pinnock and, other players, Nathan Collins, who love aerial battles, you're always going to suffer against them. But this time, to be fair to them, uh, they did score from a counter, 2 goals from the counter, and it was yet again the chief threats of Kevin Shada and Igor Thiago, who caused you the United defense a host of problems here, with Igor Thiago escaping the game with 2 goals. And it was a tough day at the office for Manchester United. On the positives for them, Benjamin Sheshko did open his account for Manchester United. It was a really wonderfully crafted move to make it 2-1. But sadly for them, Matthias Jensen did, at the very death, put the game to bed with a wonderful strike that just uh, put the game beyond the Red Devils here, who ended up losing at the GTEC Community Stadium. And if I didn't say this in the last episode of the review, then I have to say it now. Going to the GTEC Community Stadium is really going to be really tough for teams, in all honesty, because the type of football that they do play, counter-attacking football and everything, uh, they are really going to cause you a lot of problems. And honestly, it's thanks to them that now they have revived this thing of long throws. Now everybody seems to be using them, in all honesty. So yeah, that was the Brentford against Manchester United, and honestly, United really have a lot of work to do, because their struggles really are looking to destroy them again this season. So that was Brentford United, and I will now move on to the Sunday games a bit. I won't be going chronologically. I will be going, just as I had put them in my notes. So the next game in my notes is, I believe, Sunday's game between Newcastle and Arsenal. And at this point, honestly, as an Arsenal hater, watching their games is really annoying, because even if they do go behind, you do know that at the very end they do this thing where they always like to score late goals. They are becoming a bit like Liverpool, in all honesty. And with Arsenal, there, what really isn't making me happy with Arsenal is the fact that what I complain about with Chelsea in regards to the manager not using his squad options really well in terms of bringing them off the bench to contribute something. Well, Arsenal and Arteta have really managed to work that out tremendously, tremendously. Because in this game, yet again, it was the subs who did the trick for them. And I believe not they did not all score, but they did add the momentum that they did need to close out the game and look for the important 3 points. As I did mention, that Arsenal's targets this season is winning the Premier League, and to win the Premier League, there are certain places that you must go, and you must not leave there without 3 points. And St James Park is one of them. And for them to end up nicking it at the very very end of the game, the last minutes of the game, the dying embers of the game, thanks to Gabriel Magalhaes getting a late header after getting himself, of course, in the villain status at first, with the fact that he really was weak in the goal that Arsenal did concede, where in an aerial battle with one Nick Voltemade, who is a beast in himself, honestly. Really, Gabriel didn't compete that well, and he went from villain to hero here with getting the only important second goal to make it 2-1 for Arsenal, and giving Arsenal the 3 points to leave St James Park with. And as much as I may hate to say this about Arsenal, that as much as I don't like them, going to St James Park and getting 3 points is a huge, huge positive, because not many teams are going to go there and come away with the victory. So Arsenal did well and continue their march on to the Premier League. So well done to Arsenal. As much as it pains me to say that, they are looking great. And my hope, as always, is always for them to crumble at the very end. So that's it with the Arsenal game. And moving on now to the Liverpool game. And finally, Liverpool's luck has run out. They did manage to get their first loss of the season. And if you have noticed in the previous episodes of the review, as I was speaking about Liverpool, I have always mentioned the element of luck in their games. And I have always also mentioned the fact that Liverpool undoubtedly have the best attack in this Premier League. But what will always be the Achilles heel of Liverpool this season is that defense, because they will always give you chances. And I believe in all the games that they have won this season, it has really been not convincing, but more on the luck side of it, because they do score goals, but the amount of chances that they have been gifting the opposition teams, really, for Liverpool to have, well, until the weekend, been among the only two teams to be unbeaten in the league, would have really been a huge, huge surprise, because other opponents of Liverpool have really been thus far being very terrible in front of goal and converting their chances, because there have been some gilt-edged chances that opposition teams have missed against Liverpool. So this time, I believe their luck ran out, because they met. Well, at this point, they're becoming their nemesis. They met Crystal Palace, and thanks to Crystal Palace, Liverpool have managed to get their first defeat of the season. So uh, Palace are really tough team to come up against, because they are very resolute in defense, and they have attackers that are lethal. They may not create much, but the little that they do create, those attackers really, really do thrive on on those chances. And they did the same here with Ismail Assar netting a goal from a set piece. Liverpool will have to look themselves there because they conceded from a corner, and Ismail Assar was there to score the goal. And they then of course, as Liverpool do, they equalized at the 80th minute with Federico Chiesa getting yet another late goal for Liverpool to save their blushes. Also, they thought until this time, Liverpool suffered a dose of their own medicine in terms of them always scoring late goals in games. This time, at the last kick of the game, there was former Arsenal striker in Eddie Nketiah to stun the Reds here and give them their first defeat of the season. And it's a miracle that up to now, the only that is now game week 6, the only team in the Premier League that is yet to taste a defeat is Crystal Palace. And honestly, it is a huge ode to their defense because the defensive structure that Crystal Palace defend with is really tough to break down for any team. So they now uh, have that tag of the only unbeaten team in this Premier League. So yeah, Crystal Palace beat Liverpool, and it was thanks to goals from Ismail Assar and one Eddie Nketiah. So that was Crystal Palace beating the champions Liverpool. And moving on to the next game, uh, well, it was Man City 5, Burnley 1. Generally, this was always going to happen because going to the Etihad for a team like Burnley, it's one of the things that I say even when the fixture list comes out. If you're a Burnley supporter, if you're a Burnley associate there, a Burnley uh, top notch there, leading in the management team, you must surely see the Etihad and already cross the fact that that is 0 points already, because the intention always from Burnley was going to go there and make sure that they protect their clean sheet first, that they weren't really going to be able to score a lot of goals. So this game ended 5-1, and indeed it was no surprise. The only surprise is that in City's 5 goals, it included 2 own goals from one Maxime Esteve, who I believe became the first player since one Wout Fash for Leicester managed to achieve the same feat of scoring 2 own goals in the same game, and it just gave City the helping hand that they needed. Although it was a bit tough for City in the first half, because I believe, despite the fact that they did take the lead, a very, very early goal to give them the lead, sadly they were pegged back by Burnley to make it 1-1. But in the second half, all hell was let loose upon the Burnley defense, and 2 own goals from one Maxime Estevas mentioned. Also adding on to the fact that Erling Haaland did grab 2 late goals. There did, end up giving Manchester City a 5-1 victory, or help City along the way to a 5-1 win over Burnley. And really, it wasn't really much to doubt about. So that's Man City, Burnley, and into Villa against Fulham. That game was played on Sunday, and it's a miracle that uh, going into this game, I believe the 6th game of the season, Villa were looking for their first victory of the season, and they did manage to get it here, beating Fulham 3-1. Although it wasn't really that easy for them, because they started off the game going behind to a Raul Jimenez goal. Sadly for Fulham, just after Jimenez scored that goal, uh, he went off injured, and they of course had to sub him off. And sadly for Fulham, decisions really weren't going their way, and the goal that they conceded was a bit of a cheap goal, in all honesty. Route one, the ball keeper onto Luca Digne, who clipped one in behind the defense, and Joachim Anderson should look away now because he allowed the ball to bounce. Really, it was a misjudgment from his part of where the ball was, and in the ball landing, it landed at the feet of uh, Oli Watkins, who got there ahead of the onrushing Bernard Leno in goal, and uh, the rest is history. They made it 1-1, and the second half, Unai Emery introduced Emiliano Buendia, who did give them even more added momentum in their attack, and goals from him and John McGinn did manage to secure the 3-1 victory for Aston Villa to give them their first victory of the season. And honestly, it's about time because it was getting on a bit of hot water for Unai Emery, who the fact that Villa hadn't gotten a victory, there was starting to be a bit of pressure building up on him. So he will be happy with the fact that at least the Villans did manage to get a 3-1 victory here. So moving on to the next game, it was a Saturday late kickoff of Spurs hosting Wolves. And going into this game, this is always the game that Wolves will always want to kickstart their season. Wolves are going into this as one of the only teams to yet to taste a victory. And despite their efforts, they did go ahead. Santiago Bueno from a set piece. They were under the cosh before that. Spurs were really piling on the pressure onto them with creating a lot of good chances. Sadly for Spurs, they did miss them, and Wolves went ahead through a set piece. Corner went into the box and found the feet of Santiago Bueno, who did prod the ball home uh, despite the attempts of the on-rushing Guillermo Vicario and the Spurs defense to close him down to make it Wolves 1 and Spurs nil. So even after that goal, Wolves chose the approach of protecting their lead, and it would have worked because it worked well just until the final moments of the game, where if you are parking the bus looking to protect a point, then you must expect that if Spurs decided to work on a few shots there in and out, then what was always going to be the risk was a few ricochets here and there inside the box, and one ricochet happened to fall to the feet of Joao Palhinha, who placed the ball wonderfully past Sam Johnston to give Spurs a point, although one that they wouldn't like because they would have really wanted to win that game. So 3 points for Wolves were sized down to one, thanks to Joao Palhinha getting a late leveler to end the game for 1-1. And on a Spurs perspective, they wouldn't really be happy with that point because it is a game that they will have penned down as 3 points going into it. So it is one that will upset the Spurs faithful and, of course, Thomas Frank, their manager. So sadly for Spurs, they only managed to escape uh, this tie with just a point instead of three. And as for Wolves, the search continues for their first victory of the season. Uh, on to the next game. Sunderland were at the City Ground to face Nottingham Forest, and it is yet another game where relegation threatened team in Sunderland get another all important 3 points with their doggedness in defense, having to bail them out a lot. They Sunderland really have a really good defense. They have a really good midfield. The attack is where it may look a bit iffy, but their defense and their midfield are what are going to win them games this season. And it was their defense again which won them this game. The goal came from Omar Alderete, the centre back come fullback, from a set piece. And really, Nottingham Forest will be itching themselves with the fact that they did concede from a set piece in yet another game that, with Ange Ball, they did dominate, create a lot of chances. I'm looking at you, Dylan Bakwa. I'm looking at you again, Chris Wood, who missed a gilt edge opportunity. Really, I believe 2-3 yards header, which Chris Wood somehow managed to not find the net with. And really those missed chances ended up coming back to bite Nottingham Forest on their backside. So Sunderland, thanks to their doggedness in defense and the important header from Omar Alderete, did manage to escape the City ground with 3 points, which I'll have to laugh at this point, but at this stage of the season, Sunderland are third in the Premier League, and I must say that if I did mention earlier that Sunderland were having the threats of relegation, those threats are done. Sunderland will stay up, so it's a matter of which other teams will go down. So Sunderland, for me, have already sealed their Premier League status by game week 6. Yes, so Sunderland will be safe in the Premier League. They will be looking forward to yet another season of Premier League football, and it'll honestly be thanks to their defense, which has really done them proud up to this point. So yeah, that was Sunderland beating Nottingham Forest. And on to the next game now. We do go. Leeds playing Bournemouth, an entertaining 2-2 draw here. Uh, Antoine Semenyo continued his great vein of form, giving Bournemouth the lead here with a very wonderfully cleverly crafted free kick, uh, going low while the wall jumped to give Bournemouth a 1-0 lead. And then it became the Sean Longstaff show. Uh, First of all, he did get the assist for Joe Rodon to equalize for Leeds to make it 1-1. And he was there again, Sean Longstaff, that is. He was there again from yet another set piece. It was from the second phase. The ball goes in, and a few ricochets in the box, and the ball did come out and land onto the feet of Sean Longstaff, who smashed the ball into the back of the net to give Leeds a 2-1 victory. And they would have really been happy about it, and thought that probably they were going to escape this game with Bournemouth with all 3 points. But sadly for them, they were held back thanks to yet another late goal. This time credited to one Eli Junior Krupi, who did manage to get his foot onto on the back of a flick on, of course, from a long free kick, I must say, which landed onto the head of one of the Bournemouth players, and the header uh, out wide found the foot or volley, in this case, of one Eli Junior Krupi, who did manage to get the all important last minute goal to equalize for Bournemouth to give them a 2-2 draw at Elland Road. That was Leeds Bournemouth 2-2, and really it's a point gained for Leeds, because they are going to need every point that they will get in this Premier League if they are to survive. They are still one of the teams for me that are still having that threat of relegation. So it's an important point for Leeds. And as for Bournemouth, they continue their momentum. I believe up to this point they've only suffered one defeat, a few draws in there, yes, but it's a good point also for Bournemouth to get them along their way. I believe their target this season will be most probably to get Europe, and more so the Europa Conference League spot. So it's a good point for both teams, in all honesty. So that was Leeds against Bournemouth, and I believe, if I'm not wrong, this should be the last game where Everton hosting West Ham, who first things first sacked their manager Graham Potter on Saturday. Oddly enough, after he took the press conference on Friday, so Graham Potter was sacked, becoming the second manager to lose his job in the Premier League this season. Funny enough, after Nuno Espirito Santo at Nottingham Forest, and it was Nuno Espirito Santo who ended up somehow getting the job for West Ham, and this was his first game playing away at Everton at of course, Everton's new ground of the Hill Dickinson Stadium, and the game ended 1-1. And honestly, Everton will have themselves to rue for that fact, because they started well on the front foot, dominating the entire first half, I must say, and playing good football, keeping the ball really well. Uh, the threats of Iliman Jai and Jack Grealish on the wings were really causing West Ham a lot of problems. Despite that, none of them did manage to contribute to anything to the into this game, apart from dribbles, fancy dribbles here and there, which will frustrate us fantasy Premier League players, who those of us who own those two players, and those two really didn't do much. They weren't also involved in the goal that Everton scored, with James Garner getting yet another assist from a delivery. It was the second phase of a corner, and James Garner this time delivered the ball well, and it was met by the head of one Michael Keane to give Everton the lead. But sadly for Everton, that was the only goal that they did get in a very dominant first half display from them. And that will disappoint them, in all honesty, because they should have scored more, in my opinion. And if you do not take advantage of your dominance in the first half, get at least two goals, then you're always liable to the opposition coming back to bite you in the backside. And it did happen here with West Ham getting their equalizer, and it was a really wonderful move, which ended up at the feet of an El Haj Malik Diouf, the West Ham left back. And I must say, if there's one thing about him, the greatest quality that he does have, the Senegalese, it is to whip those balls into the box. And his beautiful cross this time, dangerous cross, did manage to uh, just evade the striker in Nicholas Fulkrug, and landed onto the feet of Jared Bowen, who was unmarked all alone in the box, and he did the rest in getting the ball to his left foot and curling a beauty into the top corner to give West Ham the all important 1-all draw. And sadly, despite of Everton's furious attempts at goal to try and get the victory over West Ham, they didn't manage to do anything with them. So it is a disappointing point for Everton, because they would have felt that with the dominance that they did have, at least in the first half, they should have gotten the victory here. But sadly for them, West Ham do come in to the Hill Dickinson Stadium and escape with a 1-all draw, and it is a first point for West Ham under the new management of Nuno Espirito Santo, which will do them good, a good starting point to for Nuno to work with. So yeah, that was Everton versus West Ham, 1-1, disappointing draw for Everton and encouraging point for West Ham here and Nuno Espirito Santo. So yeah, that's it, guys. The end of game week 6 review, and it ends with Liverpool having taken top spot, with now Arsenal on their tails in there with second. And I will laugh at this, somehow Sunderland are in there. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching the review, and I will see you all, I believe, soon. Thank you for watching. Please have a lovely Tuesday and enjoy the rest of your day.